I should be good. Check. Mike Griffith, ready? Show's ready. Hey, everybody. Mike Griffith here. Welcome to tonight's On the Beat feature. And really pleased and excited to bring an all-time great. You know, it isn't very often when you do these shows when you can say all-time great and people go, well, how great was he? He was the greatest receiver that George ever had when I look at the numbers. I mean, Terrence Edwards joined us. Terrence, thanks for joining us. All-time pass receptions leader, all-time receiving yards leader, all-time leader in career touchdowns at Georgia, single-season touchdown. These records still hold, and they go all the way back. I don't want to make you feel too old. They go back to 2002, and you're still in the records book, Terrence. So how do you feel when you realize these records have not been broken yet?
You know, I always say to people, man, that records are meant to be broken, but just not mine. So, but I know at some point they will be broken. But until that day comes, I'm still the all-time leading receiver in Georgia history.
You are, and we've talked before. And Terrence he's really a humble guy, and he'll tell you he puts AJ. You know, he talks about AJ Green all, and I'm looking at the numbers. I'm like, you got a better case than AJ Jordan, but to your credit. You put AJ up there too, but I look at this, and I mean this is remarkable. And I guess guys like you're still teaching at the TE Academy, and let's start out with that. Let's let people know where you're at right now, and then we'll start reminiscing and reflecting. But tell us what you're doing right now and where you're doing it at, Terrence.
I'm in Atlanta. Live in Atlanta with my wife and 3 kids, and I own and operate Terrence Edwards Wide Receiver Academy, where I train from the middle school level all the way up to professional ranks. And I've trained and a lot of the Georgia receivers, 3 of the 2020 receivers that at Georgia signed this year, Jermaine Burton, Justin Robinson, and Lad McConkey. Lad just joined recently, but Jermaine and Justin, I've started with them when both was in the 8th grade. Well, Jermaine in the 7th grade, Justin in the 8th grade. And I've trained those guys all the way up through 9 currently.
Oh, that's exciting. That's really cool. And later on, I'm going to ask you about those guys. We're going to break it down. I'm going to get some predictions from you. But talk about your career. You come from a smaller town, I guess. So I was talking to Chip Towers earlier tonight. He was covering Georgia. He said, they didn't really recruit from that area. Of course, your brother Robert played, but reflect on that for me. I mean, who was Terrence Edwards before he came to the University of Georgia?
Terrence from a small town, Sandusville, Georgia, home of the Golden Hawks. And Chip knows we had a lot of great football players to come out of my hometown, starting with my brother Robert. Another guy that people know, 15-year NFL vet, Takeo Spites is another one that comes from my hometown, along with myself. We just gonna have a really, really lot of great football players to come out of that small town. And as you didn't know, first I didn't play receiver until I got to Georgia. I've been a quarterback all my life, and you've seen the videos that I put out on Twitter, me throwing. I'm a quarterback at heart, but just had opportunity to switch positions, talented enough to switch positions, kind of in the Hines Ward mode coming out. I knew Coach Dunn was going to use me the same way he used Hines. That's all over the field, and I just thought that was the best fit because I did get recruited coming out of high school to play quarterback. But I just at that time it wasn't a lot of 6 feet, 165-pound quarterbacks walking around. But if I was coming out in today's age, I definitely would stay playing quarterback.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. Let me back up a little bit. All the great athletes coming. Were the little league was that like the center attraction? In that town. I mean, how does a guy? Because nowadays, there's so much specialization in guys going to camps and do you go to this recruiting camp and that recruiting camp, and yet your town produces. What was that life like? I mean, was it playing ball every day? Was there a park in the middle of town? Paint that picture for me.
Yeah, it's just come from our hometown. We had one recreation apartment, so we have a twin city. Takeo Spites is from Sandusville, and Robert and I we're from Tenham, but we all go to the same high school. So we all grew up in the same parks, playing against each other and with each other. So we all knew at a young age who were the special kids in our hometown, and they turned out to be the special kids that went off and did great things. And Takia was one of those guys that you knew at an early age that he was going to be something special. And he's 2 years older than me, and he's 2 years younger than Robert. So we got a little gap there that Robert led it off, then it went to Takia, then it went to myself. And I had family members. I got a cousin named Chris Edwards who played football at Georgia Tech. He has a little brother named Josh Gordy, same family that played 5 years in the NFL. So that little town, I mean, we don't really have that much to do but go out and and play sports all day, every day till the street lights come on. Then you have to go inside.
Yeah. And you said you played quarterback in high school, and things have changed, offenses, RPOs. You mentioned what were some schools that recruited you at quarterback? Because obviously you were a phenomenal athlete, also a great basketball player.
So the two schools that really wanted me to play quarterback strictly was Nebraska, with Tom Osborne at the time. We ran the exact same offense in high school that Nebraska ran. I mean, the exact same to the T. And a lot of people don't know if Nebraska was probably 3 hours away. I was a Tommy Frazier fan. I probably went to Nebraska, played quarterback, just lived far from home. I can remember the night Tom Osborne was going to retire with Frank Soldier was in my house, and I talked to Tom, and he told me he was going to announce his retirement the next day. I was their number one quarterback recruit. Auburn was my lead recruiter was Jimbo Fisher at the time. They had Damian Craig and Terry Boughton was their quarterback. So I fit the mold of what they wanted to do, an athletic quarterback who, people don't know I could throw the ball very well. So those two recruited me strictly as a quarterback. And I tell people now, the kids that I come in contact with, to ask Jimbo Fisher about me coming out of high school, because Jimbo was he wasn't too happy with me when I decided not to go to Auburn and decided to go to Georgia, because he told me, Terrence, you are a quarterback. You're not a receiver. You are a natural born leader quarterback. And he was he didn't take too kindly that when I told him I was going to Georgia to play receiver. Then he switched it up and told me, well, if you want to play receiver, you can play receiver here too. It's up to you. But those are two schools that strictly recruited me as a quarterback.
That's fascinating. You think about what happened in Nebraska. And while they did do decent with Frank Solich, I mean, I think that poor guy ended up getting fired. He was winning 10 games a year. But, if you plug you in that offense, I mean, that could have been a difference. It's interesting. And yet you go to Georgia just because of the proximity, or was there something else about the Dogs that made you want to be a Georgia Bulldog and stay in state?
So it's a couple factors. I've already, my brother was there, so people knew that. So I was very familiar with everything was going on. They couldn't lie to me. They couldn't tell me anything that I just wanted to hear because my brother was there. I was there every weekend watching him play. So I knew everything about the Georgia program, and I knew the way that they was going to use me, the way that they use Hines. Everyone knows that Hines was a quarterback as well, and Hines played several different positions at Georgia. So I knew that I was going to be in that mode, the same position that Coach Donnie used him. That's the way he was going to use me, because I was very, a multi-dimensional player. I could throw it, I could run it, I could catch, he just tried to find different ways to put the ball in my hand. And that fascinated me a lot. But then I don't know if you remember, Coach North Carolina State was really interested in Coach Donnie. And I don't know how close he was going to go back to his alma mater, but I tell you now, if Coach Donnie would have left and went to North Carolina State, I would have ended up at Auburn and playing quarterback.
Wow. Now that's pretty fascinating too. You always wonder how these things play out, and some things have changed, but certainly these relationships and the dynamics of recruiting, really don't. You mentioned Jimbo Fisher in Auburn. I covered Damian Craig, and Damian was a pretty fascinating quarterback, and actually, I believe, led Auburn to the 1997 SEC championship game. That's probably right about when it would have heated up for you. When you look at the young guys now that you're dealing with, that you counsel, not coach, but you also counsel, how much different is recruiting now to what it was then?
Very, very different. One of the things that I'm always boisterous about is how early the kids get offers. I mean, even some of the guys that I've counseled and I trained have a kid now at Hillgrove named Caden Lee. he's a ninth grader and received so many Division I offers right now, and he's a talented kid. But that's the biggest thing. When I was coming out, most everyone received their first offer the spring going into their junior year, and I just think right now with kids against offers such at an early pace, then other kids starting to worry about, well, such and such have an offer. Why don't I have an offer? I just wish all the kids could get a offer, verbal offer around going into their junior season. I also think it makes them continue to have that fire burn instead of acting like they arrived. Most kids I know still continue to act like they haven't got offers and continue to have that drive to be the best. But there are some that act like they've made it. They're sitting on their laurels of I got my offer. That's all I needed, and now I'm the best out there. Which as a early ninth, 10th grader, people are going to come at you on Friday nights and see why you have those offers and what these colleges see in you. So we're going to test you. So there's a lot of factors. Social media is another thing that's totally different. When we didn't have social media come out and say I was blessed to have such and such offers. You talk to the papers, they have to write. You talk to the coaches, they have to come see you. Wasn't no DMs, wasn't no text messages. The recruiting game just totally changed. It was strictly I'm calling, which could get real crazy, and that's the only way they can communicate with you. But the recruiting world is totally different now. In my hometown, I mean, you don't even have to go see the kids these days. You could fire up their huddle and see what they're about. And if you wanted to offer them now, you could go and make that trip down in the middle of nowhere to Sandersville. But if not, you could watch the huddle, see if you like them or not. So the recruiting game has changed with technology.
Talking to Georgia all-time receiving leader Terrence Edwards, the Bulldogs' all-time leader in reception yardage, catches, and when you left and you finished your career at Georgia, you were the SEC's the SEC's all-time leading receiver, and you held that. It looks like Jordan Matthews and Amari Cooper are the two guys that passed you. You held that record for 11 years, Terrence. That's absolutely amazing. Still the only Georgia receiver with 1,000-yard season. Now you go from a tremendous Georgia career, and you have your year with the Falcons, and that's always something I've always wondered. And I'm sure you've had this discussion with people before. We always hear the Falcons don't take Georgia football players. Well, you were a Falcon, and have you ever seen any or heard? Have you ever thought? And what was it like to be a pro football player so close to home?
It's a blessing and a curse. I don't. I know AJ Terrell. I'm not saying that I'm close to him or anything. We worked closer together a few years ago when he was in high school, and I was just telling some of his acquaintances that it's a blessing and a curse to be playing in your home state. This is his home city. It was just my home state, and there's a lot of distraction that goes on when you're playing in your home state. Of course, when I left Georgia, I'm the all-time leading receiver now. A lot of people know me in the state. Now I'm playing for the Falcons, so it's always ticket requests and just a lot of things that goes on that when you're from the state of Georgia, you have to put up with. Of course, I was an undrafted free agent and wasn't expected to do a lot, but AJ Terrell is a first-round draft pick who's going to be a starter from day one. So there's a lot of pressure on that young man to come in and play well in your home state. And I was telling someone like he was drafted to the Cleveland Browns and he didn't play well. Well, he's going to come back home to Atlanta in the offseason, so he's not going to run into any of those fans out in the supermarkets anywhere. Well, you're at home. You're going to stay here. You're going to live here. So he has to play well because now people are going to bump into him wherever he goes, and they're going to know that's AJ Terrell of the Falcons. He can't escape it. So it's a lot of pressure on a young man to go out and perform. And I've been around him, and I think he has all the tools to be a top corner. But it is a blessing and a curse to play in the state that you reside and you're from.
Yeah. Did you feel that pressure at Georgia? Because, Robert had been there and obviously done great things. And, you mentioned that you'd never played receiver before. You knew you were coming to Georgia to play receiver. Or did that kind of take the pressure off of you, the fact that there was going to be a position change? Do you recall how that was? And what was that like trying to learn receiver after being a high school quarterback?
Well, I learned it on the fly actually. I knew I was, talented enough. I could catch, I could run, I was quick, I could do all the things that you would need to be an elite receiver. Just a lot of nuances of the position that I didn't know. So I learned on the fly. I didn't have a true receiver coach when I first got there. Greg Williams was a defensive back at North Carolina State with Coach Dunning, and he coached receivers my first 2 years before Coach Rick got there. He did the best job that he could, so I kind of just learned on the fly. But there's a lot of small details that I didn't know until Coach Rick and my receiver coach John Eason came in. They taught me some of the finer points of playing this position. So I was just out there playing a raw ability, going out there, 18, 19-year-old kid, just going out there, not knowing anything. Just I love playing football, and I can run and catch, and you throw it up, and I'm gonna try to go get it, just like I'm in the backyard playing when I'm with my older brother. So pressure, I wouldn't say pressure because I played in a lot of big games in high school. Won 2 state championships as the starting quarterback, won 3 overall out of 4 years in high school. So I've been in pressure situations. And you probably don't remember, it's crazy. My first catch as a Georgia Bulldog went for like a 46-yard touchdown. So I just thought this was easy. this is this is easy, but then it definitely got harder as the season went on, as I got in SEC play. But I just learned on the fly. It wasn't much pressure, but now once you put up 10 catches, 196 yards, and 2 touchdowns, the expectations, that's where the pressure came. Now they expect you to do that every week, week in, week out. So I did the best that I could, not knowing the position like I know it now, just went out there and played football.
Yeah, I'd say you did all right. What was it like transitioning from Coach Donnan to Coach Rick? And both of those men have a place in Georgia history. I don't know if fans today, they just kind of look back and they look at the records, and sometimes there's revisionist history. Maybe there's not as much of an appreciation as there should be for where they brought Georgia and the steps that move forward. But what do you recall about that transition as a player going from Coach Donnan to Coach Rick?
Um, it's kind of scary territory. Now you've got used to one coach, and you understand the way he wants things done, and now you got a new coach coming in and totally bringing a whole new attitude and atmosphere, and now you got to reprogram yourself to get Coach Dunn way of thinking and way of things out of your system now to Coach Rick way of things on how he want his program to be ran. And I'm fond of both of those guys. I appreciate Coach Dunn for giving me an opportunity to come play at Georgia, and I appreciate Coach Rick for making me the player who I am today. Him and John East and my receiver coach. So I appreciate both guys dearly.
Yeah, and the player that you became. So after the Falcons, you go on to this Hall of Fame CFL career. I
Mhm.
saw the Winnipeg Blue Bombers put you in their Hall of Fame, and I know the Canadian Football League. What always fascinated me was how much movement there was before the
Yeah.
snap. And Terrence, I look at the NFL, and it seems like every year it seems to get a little bit closer to the CFL. What would be some of your observations? Do you see some things that the CFL did that we're now starting to see in college football and even in the NFL as far as schemes and spacing and things like that?
It's funny that the RPO game in the Canadian Football League is a staple of the passing game. So this RPO game wasn't new to me once it really hit the scenes in the States, because that's what we did a lot in the Canadian Football League, throwing the ball, different concepts. I mean, you have a lot of concepts now that I didn't see before that, a lot of Canadian teams run now, a lot of teams in the States are running. So there's a lot of, similarities, but there's also a lot of differences in the two games. And I think a lot of people in the States don't know a lot about the Canadian football game, but one quick fact, the Canadian football is the oldest football in North America. It's older than the NFL. I mean, so you had a lot of greats to travel up north to play, from Warren Moon to Jeff Garcia to Rocky Ishmael. Like, there have been a lot of NFL greats that played in the Canadian Football League first before they made their way down south. So it is a good game. There's been a lot of guys that came up from the NFL that didn't make it because football, it is a really good brand of football up there, and I enjoyed my time. Um, of course, in the NFL wasn't in my cards to be successful as I was in Canadian Football League, but I enjoyed the time. Uh, my kids can say that they lived in a different country for 6 months out the year. Um, we got to see a different country, different way of living in Canadian. So I enjoyed my time. And I wouldn't change it for anything.
Yeah, no, it's been a fascinating journey, playing for Winnipeg Blue Bombers 2007 to 2013, now back in Atlanta and back to doing, still what you love, coaching football, mentoring these young players. And you mentioned at the start of the show that, you worked with some of the incoming freshmen. You've known Jermaine Burton for quite some time, and Justin Robinson. And, Justin, of course, went through the winter workouts before the COVID-19 stall on March 12th. Ladd McConkey, a guy you said, you can relate. Ladd was a high school quarterback. What would you tell us about these guys? I guess I'll start with Jermaine Burton, because you kind of go back the furthest with Jermaine. And speaking of pressure, he seems to be a young man a lot of people think is going to make an impact early at Georgia.
He has the tools. He really has the tools. He's very explosive, a twitchy receiver, receiver that's hard to bring down. He's a yard after catch receiver. So once he's catching, he's looking to score with any means necessary, over you, through you, around you. He has no regard for his body on the field. And then his hand-eye coordination is really off the chain. He is going to be up there in that aspect of how AJ Green was with his hand-eye coordination, being able to contort his body to make off-schedule catches, body control. So he has the total package, and people don't understand how fast he is. Straight line fast. If you remember his junior year, senior year, he had the fastest time for the combine. I can't remember if it was the Nike or the Under Armour. They did the fastest man contest. He was the fastest one in Atlanta. He ended up getting fourth overall in that tournament. But he 4.43, I think he ran here in Atlanta. So straight line, he's very explosive, very explosive. So I'm expecting him to help Georgia win some games next year. Justin is a big body receiver. I mean, he's already 6'4", almost 6'5", 220 pounds at 18 years old with straight line speed. People don't understand how fast he is. At the Clemson camp last year, straight line, he ran a 4.56, I think it was. And for a big man of that size moving, he high points the ball very well. The 50-50 balls, he comes down with them. So I call him 80-20 in his favor. So he's going to be that big body receiver that you can rely on in the red zone. He's a tough catch guy where he's going to make the tough catches. Then Ladd surprised me. I didn't know much about him. I know we got him late. Started watching his videos, and we finally got in contact. His parents got in contact with me, and he came down. And one thing I can say about him, he's a natural pass catcher. He doesn't fight the ball at all. He's gained weight. I think he said he was down to low 160s during basketball season. Right now, I talked to him a couple of days ago. He's 175, I think, is hoping to play this season between 180 and 185, and he can run. And he can run. So I expect him to make some plays in another year or so. I like for him to continue to develop his body, develop his receiver repertoire right now. He had to play quarterback for his team last year, I think. I don't know if it last year or 2 years, but so he's catching up right now as far as being a pro receiver. But he is a talented guy, and that's a great pickup for the Bulldogs that they picked him up late.
Talking with Terrence Edwards, he's Georgia's all-time leading receiver, 1999-2002 Bulldog. He's up in the Winnipeg Blue Bombers Hall of Fame, spent a season with the Falcons, and now helping to coach up not just future Georgia guys. There's all sorts of guys in Atlanta that go to you. Did you have a chance, and I know Marcus Roseme is from South Florida, and Arian Smith is also from Florida. Did you get a chance to see these kids or watch their film at all, Terrence?
Oh, I watch everyone's film, so I definitely. It's funny that I've watched him, watched Marcus because I once he committed, I go and just try to break him down. And one thing that he reminds me, I think he's a little faster, Riley Riley. Uh,
Okay.
he's one of those South Florida kids that are great route runners with great hands, and he's built very well. Um, so he's the guy who could put his foot in the ground, get in and out of breaks, and make tough catches. I don't think he's a straight line as fast as Jermaine, but he's a guy that's going to be able to work the middle of the field like Riley did and make those tough catches. I mean, to me, he's a little faster coming in. Riley, really, I think he's a 4.5 guy, and Riley was a 4.5 guy coming out. He's a 4.5 guy coming in, but I think he has all the traits and the similarities of Riley, really. And actually, then he reached out to me recently, and we had a back and forth on Twitter. And he just asking me, what does it take to be a great receiver, and that's big of him for that he reaches out to a one of the former dogs and just asked me questions, tried to pick my brain. He was just, he got into questions. Would it be all right for him to contact me? Like, sure, you got anything? My Jermaine has my number, Justin has my number, Kirby, Coach Hankton, all of them have my number, so you can always get in touch with me, or you can just send me a direct message on Twitter like you did before if you got any questions. And I give that man, young man, some props for reaching out to one of the older receivers, one of the, considered one of the best in Georgia history, and just try to pick my brain.
Yeah, and clearly, like I said, these numbers are just stupefying to me. 204 career catches, 3,093 yards. Any game stand out? I mean, I always got to ask that because I know that competitors always remember losses or this or that, but there had to be some
Mhm.
great moments that you hold high. I mean, your career at Georgia was absolutely illustrious.
There's a couple. I mean, the Tennessee game when we finally beat them at home and all the fans rushed the field and the goalposts were going down Baxter Street. That game sticks out. I mean, just the
What time did you
whole
go to
my
bed? What time did you go to bed that night?
I don't know if we went to bed that night, but that was a crazy night. One of the best wins in Athens Athens history, in my opinion. Then the whole 2002 season, man, was just special for that senior class with myself and Tony Gilbert, Boss Bailey, John Stinchcomb, George Foster. That senior class have kind of helped revitalize that program, and we left on a bang. So uh, that season, man, was just one of the best seasons I had, and being able to be on that team to win the SEC championship in 20 years, and now you see that we've been constantly contenders for that trophy for since we started off in 2002. Um, we can say we kind of helped build that foundation for the success that we're having right now.
Absolutely. What is it about Kirby Smart? And you've played for a number of coaches, different places. Obviously, a lot of the players you've coached up have been recruited. What do you think makes Kirby Smart so successful?
Relentless. He's relentless. Whatever it is, he's relentless. When I'm able to go to practice and he invite me to practice, I think he's gonna have a heart attack or something. Just the way he goes, man. It's Coach Rick was more laid back. He allowed his coaches to coach. He sat back and observed. Think kind of, and that was his style of coaching. He, once he needed to be the head coach, he was the head coach. But Kirby is nonstop from soon as you get to practice field till time is over. He is nonstop. Like Kirby, you don't have to slow down at some point. But he's young. He's energetic. He reaches these kids. He's a great leader. I mean, and he played for the University of Georgia, so he takes pride um, in winning at this program. He takes pride in this is his school. So, I mean, relentless recruiter. I mean, he's always trying to figure out, the next step to get the kids. He's trying to figure out the next step to win games. He's always trying to be a step ahead of the game. And I feel he's going to break through. He's going to break through.
Yeah. So now you came in '99. Was Kirby gone, or was that his senior year?
No, Kirby and I missed each other from 98, his last year. Then I came in '99.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Now there's some other guys on Georgia's team, and I guess the guy we all want to ask you about, and you and I have talked about, is George Pickens. And you said there's a chance that he's gonna he could get in that crowd with you and AJ. What do you see from George, and what are the things that George needs to do to have the type of career that you and AJ had at Georgia?
The biggest thing, he just don't need to be satisfied right now. Clearly, he's the best receiver on the team, so he can't just go and not continue to do the things that got him here. He has to continue to work on his game. People now are gunning for him. When you're the top dog and when you're the lead receiver, people are going to scheme for you. People are going to put their best defender on you. People are going to high-low you. People are going to do things to take you out. He has to control himself. I don't want him to lose that fire that makes him who he is on the field. But, you got to toe the line to not get yourself in trouble. But he's tremendously talented. Catch it radius is off the chain. And I saw a stat the other day. He may have one drop last year, catchable balls or something like that, outrageous, but great body control. I mean, big body kid. I mean, like I said, if he continues to develop, continue to mature, I meant what I said. I would consider myself as to be the third best receiver in Georgia history. I think AJ, people always ask me this. Clearly, I think AJ is the best receiver. I consider myself the most productive. AJ's the better. I'm the most productive. George can get in that category as the best and most productive if he's continued to have the mindset that I want to leave here and be the best receiver in Georgia history and go be a first-round pick. I think I know he has the tools to be that type of player, but he has to continue to work and work and work and not be satisfied.
Wow, that is a mouthful. When Georgia's all-time leading receiver is saying that a guy who, going into his sophomore year has the potential to be the greatest. I mean, certainly, Terrence, very high praise for George Pickens there. There's some other receivers coming back and some guys that have been working on their game. We wonder about Demetrius Robertson. We wonder about Matt Landers or Tommy Bush. Do you have any thoughts on some of those returning receivers and what we might see from them?
I'm gonna tell you who I'm excited to see play. For some reason, the injury bug has been snake bitten him for his first year. It's Kearis Jackson. Those Peach County boys, man. I'm from Middle Georgia. My roommate, one of the best friends, Randy McMichael, is from Peach County. They're just tough, good, hard-nosed football players, and I just hope he's able to stay healthy. And he's gonna help Georgia win some games. But we have some talent in that room. Matt Landers, and I keep harping on this, and he's gonna make me right at some point. If he puts it together, if he can bring what have I seen from the practice field on Saturdays, watch out. I mean, 6'5", 210 pounds, can run, and he can catch. He's haven't been very productive on Saturdays, and we know he's dropped, but he has the tools to be an elite receiver. Tommy Bush is another one from Texas, long ranges. I'm just excited to see play. And Demetrius Robertson is gonna make or break our season, in my opinion. He's the senior. He's gonna be the leader of the group, and he has to be productive. He has to go out and be the guy who we all thought he could be coming from Cal. And I know him. He works and he wants to be good. And he's gonna go out. I think he's gonna have a good senior year. I really do. He's got to go out week in and week out. He got to be able to take pressure off of George. He's got to be that guy. And then we could bring the other guys along, where Jermaine can make it some opportunity. And then one guy that, we haven't talked about coming off the ACL is Dominique Blaylock. I mean, we have some talent in that room. That Monken has a array of talented receivers to get the job done.
How do you feel about the Georgia? And I know that Coach Monken and Kirby and Matt Luke, and they kind of have to figure out who's who and who's had a good off season. And we're still a month away from the coaches being able to watch practice, Terrence. This is such a crazy time. But do you have any thoughts or ideas of how this offense might look as far as what really changes? I know that Georgia's always got a base offense. I know they're still going to be able to run. But as far as the passing game, when I say air raid, what does that mean, if you can break that down for us, and how different is that from what we've seen before?
I think people call his style air raid, but I think he's versatile. When he was at Oklahoma State as the offensive coordinator, Um, I believe he's never had 2,000-yard receivers. He's always had that one dominant guy as far as Dallas Cowboys receiver, Dez Bryant. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
uh, he had the Jacksonville receiver who went in the first round. Blackman, I think his name is, went to Jacksonville. So he's always had a dominant guy, and then he had pieces behind him that complemented that dominant guy. Then when he got the head coaching job at Southern Miss, he had 2 years in a row. I think he had two backs over 1,000 yards. So he's very very versatile, and I don't consider. I mean, I look at his NFL stuff, but the game is very different from the college and NFL game. So what I would like to see, what I think would be very successful in that we do this year, is if we have a 4,000-yard passer and a 2,000-yard rusher. That would be very successful in my opinion, because we got to continue to run the ball. Uh, we have the backs, Zamir Wright. I'm telling you, I like Kenny McIntosh a lot. I like him a lot. Then we got Kendall Milton coming in. So we have a stable of bats, and James Cook, finally, I think he's gonna finally have a breakout season. I think coach gonna figure out a way to get that explosive running back the ball in space. He needs at least 10 touches in the game. It's that return game, that screen game, that hand it off. That's something he has to touch the ball at least 10 times a game to use what his God-given ability. So a successful year to me is we having a 4,000-yard passing season with a 2,000-yard rushing season. So that is balanced in my opinion, but we got to be able to scare people in the passing game. And I think Jamie Newman, from watching his film, give us a dynamic that Jake didn't have. No knock on Jake. I just think Jamie is able to push the ball downfield at a better rate than Jake could. I think he's a 6'4", 230-pound quarterback that can use his leg. And I had a tweet last season that I don't need a Lamar Jackson at quarterback. I don't need a Michael Vick. I just need a quarterback who could get us 10 yards on 39. That's all I want to do. That's what we need in today's game. Just a quarterback who can get a first down, or move the pocket, or extend the plays with his legs. That's what teams that are winning in college football, that's what they have right now. A guy who can extend his legs. I mean, you look at the Clemson quarterback, Trevor Lawrence. Once he got
Yeah.
hit in that Ohio State game that we thought he was out, then he came back and had a 60-yard run that kind of opened up the game, that kind of took the game over with his legs instead of his arm. So that's the dynamic that Jamie is bringing. And I heard some great things about JT already, that he can flat out sling it. So, I mean, we got options and we got talent. Now we just got to put it together. It's a strange year this year, how much time the coach is going to have with the kids because of COVID. So spring was big for Jamie and the offense. So, but we just gotta put offense in overdrive. I'm not worried about the defense. Defense is going to be there to understand what Kirby is doing. We got a leader in that backfield, Richard LeCant. So he's going to get everyone in position, just like JR did last year. But offensively, we got to be at 10 in that Virginia game in the dome.
Have you ever been in a situation where there was two quarterbacks? Because I look at JT and I look at Jamie, and it's gonna, if JT gets the waiver, a guy doesn't come from Los Angeles to Athens to sit. You know that. And Jamie sure didn't come from Wake Forest to Georgia to sit. He had options. But have you ever been on a team where there was a two quarterback system, or where this type of competition played out? What's that going to be like in the locker room and practices, Terrence?
Of course I did. David Green and DJ Shockley.
Yeah.
Of course. So it was, as long as those two guys understand that they're competing against each other for the starter job, but ultimately it's all about the team aspect. And no, they got to go and compete hard, but they also got to be friends. David Green and DJ was the best of friends at the time. So there wasn't a split in the locker room of who should have been starting. Uh, David was the clear leader. DJ was the change, and DJ was just ultra talented as well. So Coach Rick had to find ways to get DJ on the field because he was just ultra talented. But David Green didn't do anything to lose his job either. So it worked for us. We went, 13-1, had a great season. I think we was the best team in the country that year. Unfortunately, we didn't get opportunity to play for the national championship this year. But the locker room was behind both guys. So it wasn't any kind of split locker room. We knew what DJ could bring to the table, and we knew what Greening could bring to the table. And if you see any of the on the sideline, once one quarterback does something well, that other quarterback was the first one to greet him once he was coming off the field, because they truly knew that it was all about the team. That's why we had, if you remember the shirts, we had big team, little me, and they exemplified that to the utmost respect for each other.
Yeah, amazing season. If there was a college football playoff back then, might have seen a Georgia national champion. Yeah, I look at 02, I look at 07, and I look at 12 as teams that,
and that's why people give Coach Rick his credit. If Coach Rick had the playoff system, he would have been in the playoffs at least 3 times in his tenure. So I just want people to know that Coach Rick would have been in the playoffs as well.
I know. The whole winner take all mentality. It's kind of, you got to kind of understand, some of the particulars, and that, things weren't the same then as they were right now. I mean, Alabama 2017 didn't even play in the SEC championship game.
Correct.
This crazy system put them in. But that's a discussion for us on another. Before I let you go, I don't know how many people watching remember that you actually played basketball for a season. We've seen a couple. We've seen Bo Jackson, and we've seen the Deion Sanders. Is there still a chance that we might see a dual athlete, Terrence, or is it just too specialized now for that to happen?
I think it's too specialized. Kids are specialized at an early age. I was a basketball player. I'm a basketball player at heart. A lot of people say I was better at basketball than football. I just think right now people are specializing in certain sports at an early age that you won't see that guy as a 2-sport athlete. I just don't, there's been statistics and facts that have been thrown around that, of course, LeBron James was a two-sport star, and you're going to be the best player or considered the best player to ever play, in some people's opinion. Yes, I give up football too as a sophomore, but at least he did play football all the way up to his sophomore season. Man, you got people specializing in one sport in middle school right now. So I just think, the people that are in professional sports right now, you could go back and check, a high percentage of them played 2 sports in high school. They didn't specialize, and they still made it. So you still could play football, you still could play basketball, you still could run track. You can still do all those things and still make it in the sport that you desire to make it in. You don't have to limit yourself to one sport. And I've tried to convey that to a lot of kids that, look, go run track, go play basketball, go play lacrosse, go do something else outside of football, because the burnout is real. If that's all you do all the time is a certain sport, the burnout is real.
No doubt. Terrence, is this the year the single season records for touchdown goes down, or is Pickens going to match that 11 or beat it, do you think, this year? Are you rooting for him too?
Not rooting for him, but I'll be happy if he did. But I think what goes down first, I think this year I have someone else in the 1,000-yard club this year. If George stays healthy, plays all the games.
I think the single season receiving yardage mark for what is it, like 1,007, 11 something?
Yeah. So I definitely think he's going to have a great opportunity to eclipse the 1,000-yard mark, and he has the opportunity to get the single season touchdown record as well of 11. And I'm gonna hit him up and let him know. I've sent him a few messages after that bowl game and say, just let me keep a few of my records, just a few of them. But he has the opportunity to eclipse, especially the single season record this year, if everything goes right.
Terrence, I can't thank you enough for joining us. It's not often that we can sit here and talk to the all-time receiving leader in yards and touchdowns. I mean, these numbers, like I said, they're amazing. And, this is back in 2002, really before college football was receiver friendly. I mean, I shudder to think of the kind of numbers you could put up now if they were throwing 40 or 50 times a game in some of these offenses. So it's, but obviously you've had a tremendous career, and now you're, maybe greatest of all for Georgia. You're passing on this wisdom, and you're helping more guys, achieve at Georgia. I mean, a lot of Jermaine Burton coming in and Robinson. I mean, these are guys that are learning from you. So you keep on giving to the Dogs, even though, You got your TE Academy there in Atlanta, and obviously people can follow you on Twitter. Let me see if I can find that for them here. It is at TEWR Academy, at TEWR Academy. And Terrence, obviously very receptive to folks and coaches kids as early as middle school, right?
Correct.
That's great stuff, man. Well, thanks again for joining me, man. I know I'm going to catch up and get more notes from you. And you know Georgia football like nobody else, especially that receiver position, Terrence. So thanks for joining us tonight, and have a great night. We'll be in touch.
Hey, thanks for having me. I enjoyed it.
Outstanding. Terrence Edwards. Wow. And, Michael Carvel, my producer back there at the studio, told me that, hey, man, you're late to the party if you don't know the stories about Terrence Edwards. And I'd looked up some of these numbers, and I remember I was actually covering Tennessee the night that Terrence and Georgia took the goalpost down. It was a crazy night in Athens and a remarkable offense, but a guy that keeps on giving, and I really enjoyed the conversation because you could tell, he's like any other receiver, he's got a little swag, but he wants to see George Pickens do well. The fact that he's already welcoming him in the same company with himself and A.J. Green just tells you everything about George Pickens. But now Jermaine Burton coming in, and a guy that Terrence feels good about. Robinson already here. Justin Robinson had a very strong winter workout period. I expect him to have a good season. And isn't it cool that Marcus Rosemey, the receiver from South Florida, St. Thomas Aquinas, has already reached out to Terrence Edwards and asked them, hey, can you, help me out? Can I pick your brain from time to time? I mean, that's how you want it to work. And it's something that Georgia has going that's really special. I want to thank my sponsor, Ingles. Ingles, of course, brings this program to you every Monday night. I really enjoy the live interviews. And that wouldn't be possible without Ingles, but beyond that, you think about your everyday life and you think about your needs. And, I was just at the store last night and picking up groceries. And, thank goodness for the folks at Ingles that stayed busy working on the front line to continue to bring our supplies, during this COVID-19 crisis. And this is where I asked Michael, would you please, play the Ingles spot that shows just how involved Ingles has been throughout the COVID-19 crisis.
It's in our hearts to feel for you. There's been ups and downs, turnarounds, good days and some bad. But we stand together for worse and for better. We'll always have your back with open arms, heart to heart, hand in hand. Community strong.
Welcome back. Mike Griffith here, and that was an enjoyable conversation with Terrence Edwards. The last 7 or 8 minutes, Aquinas, A.B. Harding is correcting me in my comments as I go to the board now to see if any of you all have some questions for me, what you want to talk about tonight here on the Ingles on the Beat segment. Been a great show. I've talked with Terrence a few times, and he never disappoints. I think he really has turned the receiving position into an art, and his ability to teach these young men is really going to be to Georgia's benefit. So let's see what other comments, what else we have going in here, folks. What do you want to talk about tonight? We got 7 or 8 minutes left on the Ingles on the Beat segment. If you want to ask me some questions, if you've got some comments or thoughts on Georgia football, now is the time to air it out. Peter Wilson with a very nice compliment. Peter, I appreciate that. I think Georgia fans can tell the sincerity and love that Terrence has for his school. And, when you've got a guy like that loves the school, I mean, you heard what he said. He could have gone and played football at Nebraska, for goodness sakes, as a quarterback and stayed in position, or he could have gone to Auburn and followed in the footsteps of Damian Craig. And yet he chooses to change positions just to play at his home school. And he was able to do a lot of different things. It worked out well with Coach Donnan and Coach Rick, and certainly he's done quite well. Ronald Revels wants to know my thoughts on Quay Walker starting with Monty Rice. I think that's going to be a real dogfight for that position, replacing Tay Crowder there. I know that last year, Nakobe Dean would come in on third downs. Now, does that mean that Nakobe will now have an opportunity to win the spot that Tay held, or will Nakobe continue to be that third down coverage guy. He did extremely well. In fact, I think Pro Football Focus ranked him as one of the top guys at his position. So I think that's going to be a really battle with Quay Walker and N'Kobe Dean as well. And the good news for Georgia is that Dan Lanning and Kirby have a way of really getting the most out of their talent. They do a lot of platooning. Guys play different situations. You remember last year, Adam Anderson would come in on third down. We would see, Nolan Smith come in as almost like more of a D end. So the good news is you're going to see him on the field, and he's going to have an opportunity because those Tate Crowder snaps are available now. And you better believe there's going to be a ton of competition. Joel, I enjoyed the interview with Terrence as well. And I wouldn't even call it an interview. In fact, when I talked with Terrence earlier tonight, I said, hey, this isn't an interview tonight. This is just me having a conversation with you. And that's what it is. There's no gotcha moment. When we bring the folks on our Dog Nation show, we're not trying to split anybody's head here or make way. We just want to talk football. We want to talk Georgia, and we want to bring up the things that we know the Georgia fans want to hear. And Gerald Harmon with a great point. Connor Riley had a story earlier today. If you haven't read it on Dog Nation, there's a really cool picture that has all the freshmen in it. And Connor did a really nice story on it earlier. Jeff Ingram is asking me what the line is on the Georgia-Virginia game. And for some reason, I want to say 17.5, but I'll Google that for you. I know I did a story where the MGM did an early line on that on some Georgia football games. I thought it was interesting that they didn't do a line on they did not do a line on Georgia, Tennessee, but they did on – here we go. Here's a story that was on FanDuel. Virginia opens as enormous underdog at Georgia. Let me see if I can find that for you here, doing this scrolling in real time. Yeah, 17.5 points. So I was right about that. So it was a 17.5 point. Where does everyone pregame in Jacksonville during the world's largest outdoor cocktail party? Well, I don't. I go right to the stadium, try to get it. Although last year I think we had a Dog Nation invasion there with Brandon Adams and Jeff Sentell was there as well as BJ Sweeney and Connor Riley. We did that. I want to say on the north side of the stadium. I think the game in Jacksonville is on borrowed time now. I think that's going to end in 2023. That's the last year that it's contracted for. You look at this COVID-19 situation, and it really brings into play the importance of economics in your community. And what is your hospital situation? What is your local care? And you think that you're putting $35 million into the Jacksonville economy when what we've learned during COVID is this Athens area could have really used that. The city infrastructure could really use the impact of that game. And I think you're going to see a difference in how home teams really think about the games they host versus neutral site. Probably less neutral site games moving forward. I know that Georgia's contracted to play Clemson and Charlotte, but I think you're going to see less of that. I think you're going to see teams wanting to go home and home more and build up the infrastructure in their community now that they realize, just how important it is when things happen. And let's not forget, Jacksonville's only 70 miles from Gainesville. So the Florida fans aren't going to want to give that game up. It's very convenient to them because it goes into an economy that's very close to them. Many of them really benefit from it. I think what's going to happen with this rivalry will be similar to what happened with Alabama and Auburn. Pat Dye, a former Georgia Bulldog, and I'll have a story on this later, but Pat Dye was the guy that really fought to get that Alabama-Auburn game moved to the Auburn campus. And they started playing on the Auburn campus in '89. Alabama said, we're going to keep it in '91. But, from '93, every other year, it's been at Auburn. And it really helped the Auburn community grow and build up. And also, it helped them with the recruiting. It was one more weekend. Alabama kept that game, however, in Birmingham when it was their game for another 10 years. So my prediction is that Georgia moves their game back to Athens, and Florida will keep their home game in Jacksonville for a while until they figure out, that they're really kind of cheating their fans from really the best game that there is. And you look at Jermaine King loves it because you guys just throw that out there for me, knowing that I'm going to take the bait every time because it's something that I know Kirby Smart, he's the head coach and he's got the vision. So Kenneth Wiggins, who's better offensive minded? You know, I think it's too soon to say. I mean, give Dan Mullen his credit. He's done a nice job. Todd Monken, we have not seen what he can do at Georgia. And this is only year one of Monken. It takes time. Often it takes time for coaches to really get their system in. Like, if you're Todd Monken, the most important thing that you could do this season is make sure that they can execute what you call the circle of excellence, right? So you do this much perfect. And once you're able to do this much perfect, then you try and do this much perfect and you add to the offense. And then the circle keeps growing. But if it goes too far and you're not able to execute, well, then you bring it back in, right? And I think that's what you're going to see with this Georgia offense. I think at the start of the year, I think it's going to be somewhat basic. And the emphasis is going to be on execution. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to look basic, because Monken is a guy that's known for using formations, shifts, motion. These are things that can make a very simple offense look more complex and make it look more difficult to defend for the defense. So I think you're going to see a lot of formations and shifts, but in all actuality, probably not the biggest playbook early on, especially if you want to get some of these young receivers involved. I don't know how quickly they're going to be able to pick up this offensive scheme, these plays. This isn't high school anymore. There's a lot of adjusting that's going on. Certainly everyone's adjusting to the training schedule right now during the individual workouts. These will run through July 12th. I believe July 13th is when the coaches are going to be able to start to oversee practices. And yet still, that's only going to be 2 more weeks of very restricted workouts before you get into the walkthrough stage, where they're actually going to be able to start using a football a little bit later on in July. And we covered that on the Friday Night Mike show. And certainly I've done a lot of stories on the 4-phase plan. If that's caught you up on that, hopefully that catches you up on it. I'm going to call it a night, guys. This has been a fantastic Monday night. I hope you enjoyed having Terrence Edwards, Georgia's all-time leading receiver, Canadian Football League Hall of Famer. That's not something to take lightly. They play great football up there, and he was a standout, and he's been honored. And what a great honor for Terrence to be the all-time great at Georgia, to have his, to be in a Hall of Fame in Canada, and now to be instructing. And well, I'll tell you what, if you got a young receiver or a young football player in Atlanta, all you got to do is watch Terrence Edwards on that show tonight, and you can imagine what sort of teacher and mentor that he is. Very, very, very impressive man. So thanks for joining me tonight on Ingles on the Beat. BA will be back tomorrow, 10 a.m. right here for Dog Nation Daily. Wednesday night, you'll have Jeff Sentell before the hedges. Tomorrow night, you'll have Connor Riley. So hope you enjoy these videos. Everyone have a safe and peaceful Monday night.